Guys, Coach Kurt. So this is a continuation of the series I'm doing, Best Martial Art for Self-Defense. I've covered jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. This one's going to be a little more specialized. It's going to be, what's the best martial art for self-defense for women? Now, just clarify something. I'm obviously a dude. I have no experience training just women. I've been in law enforcement since 97. I'm a control tactics instructor, a use of force instructor, taser, baton, pepper spray, yada, yada. I'm a field training officer. Now, we have female officers that I've trained, and I have to adjust techniques and concepts to each individual officer, regardless if they're a smaller female or a smaller male. But there is some guidelines that I think you should look at for self-defense for women. Now, let's turn it over to the experts. I would suggest you go to Fit to Fight. Her and her husband, Amber, you see in the top right there, and I believe it's Ryan Hoover. They're both married, and they run the program. Guys, they are high-end, top-shelf self-defense experts in the industry. Also, I'm a big fan of Hard to Hurt, Mike over at Hard to Hurt, his YouTube channel. But if you're looking for something with a lot of female content, Amber with Fit to Fight is huge. She's very athletic, obviously, but she's a smaller female. She's got an extremely strong background in Krav Maga, mixed martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and she pushes what really works for a smaller person like a female. So I highly recommend you go to them. Don't listen to just someone like me, some Yahoo on the internet. Go to somebody who specializes in that. And those are the two I recommend. Now, you're seeing Krav Maga, obviously, in the main screen. I am a huge fan of Krav Maga. I have a Krav Maga background. To recap, I'm a 5th dan in Hapkido, 1st dan in Taiho Jitsu. I have mixed martial arts, Krav Maga background for a couple years with a private instructor. I have a Kaji Kembo background, very strong Kaji Kembo background, and I cross-train extensively in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's primarily what I train on my own time. I teach Taiho Jitsu, which is basically arresting techniques. That's what Taiho Jitsu stands for. But yes, I'm a little biased. I have a Krav Maga background to a certain degree, but Krav Maga is not created equal across the board. There are a lot of what I call McDojo-style Krav Maga programs out there, and I'm not saying all of them are that way. There are some good ones, and I will give you a good example. If you're ever in Oregon, Salem, Oregon, there's Salem Krav Maga, super high-end Krav Maga school. You will, and I'll use them as an example. They have a strong Krav Maga program where they take from multiple Krav Maga programs and backgrounds. They don't just follow one lineage of Krav Maga. They incorporate a lot of MMA-style grappling, which is huge, and we will cover grappling for self-defense for in general, not just women. But they also do like some MMA-style sparring. Guys, it is, if you want an example of a top-notch Krav Maga school, there's a perfect one right there. Fit to Fight with Amber, and then Krav Maga Salem. I forget the female's name that owns and runs the school. She's a top-shelf instructor. I apologize for not remembering her name, but that's a great example. So let's get into it. Again, I say we're going to talk about grappling. The first thing that you will hear from a lot of Krav Maga McDojos is, well, we train so we don't have to go to the ground, or we train anti-grappling so you can't be taken down, or some variation of that statement, which I am here to tell you is complete, utter BS. You will end up on the ground at some point if you are in a street fight or enough street fights. Listen, there's a statistic going around, like 90% of all street fights or fights in general end up on the ground. And that is BS. That is a law enforcement-based concept or number. And yes, if you are a cop, you will end up on the ground if you are actively fighting a resisting suspect who needs to be handcuffed. Of course, it's going to end up on the ground because that's the easiest way to handcuff somebody is on the ground. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or more generically speaking, an MMA-style grappling program is what you need to incorporate into your self-defense. No ifs, ands, or buts. You have to do it. If you are actually wanting to learn real self-defense, you absolutely have to do some grappling. I'm not saying you have to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. In fact, there are MMA rock stars out there that are only like blue or purple belts in Jiu-Jitsu, and they can beat black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because it's a different game. A lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools out there are very sport-based, and so they're maybe 100% gi, sport-based, and I'm not suggesting gi isn't self-defense. I am a huge fan of 50-50 training, 50% gi, 50% no gi. We will get more into that in a bit. But they will be very sport-based, and you need to incorporate grappling against somebody who's also grappling and striking. Striking changes things up really quick. You know, you can have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you start punching them in the face because they're used to the sport game and being in positions that don't make sense for self-defense. They're going for those, leg locks or ankle locks, and they're doing it in a manner that is not self-defense friendly. And you see this in MMA sometimes where somebody's working hard for that ankle lock or leg lock and they end up getting knocked out or technically knocked out because they're leaving themselves open for strike. So striking is a huge game changer when you're incorporated into grappling. Watch Combat Sambo as a perfect example, or Combat Jiu-Jitsu. Eddie Bravo has a program out there where they incorporate slapping. It changes things up quite a bit, and you need to be prepared for that. But is grappling the only thing you should be doing? Absolutely not. On screen now, you're seeing me training with a fellow law enforcement officer and control tactics instructor. She is a Muay Thai and boxing specialist. That's her game. And I am giving her what I call bad guy energy in this video right now, where I'm being athletic and resisting, but I'm not doing, like trained jiu-jitsu resistance. I'm giving her bad guy energy so she can work her sprawls and her takedown defense. And if we end up on the ground, she can go for the joint locks. Again, we're going for a handcuffing scenario, but she's doing a good job of sticking and moving. She's small. She's only 5'3", but she's very athletic and highly skilled striker. So she's doing it correctly. She's going in and out, sticking and moving, using her attributes. And this is what you're going to want to do as a female or any smaller officer or anyone who's fighting somebody bigger, stronger, more athletic. Always assume in a street scenario that somebody is bigger, stronger, more athletic. And again, just for verification, we're talking self-defense. We're not going to discuss the obvious things like have your keys in your hand, don't be someplace at 2 a.m. you shouldn't be, don't put yourself in precarious situations. That is all the first thing you should be considering in self-defense. But let's say somebody attacks you blindsided, and it's very different from sparring. It's very different from grappling. But you want to have put yourself in enough scenarios in training that your mind, your subconscious, has something to feed off of, something to follow up on, something to work off of. And that's what we're talking about for self-defense. Krav Maga program or some kind of combative program. And I don't like to use the word reality-based martial arts too much because there is that stigma, again, like using Krav Maga as an example. There's a stigma of a lot of what I call fly-by-night or McDojo-style crowd programs, and that's unfortunate because Krav Maga, by itself, is a terrific program if you're at the right school with the right instructors. And the good programs like Krav Maga Salem that I was talking about earlier has a strong grappling base in their classes. They have separate grappling classes. They have separate sparring / MMA programs. A big MMA program that I am a huge fan of, and again, I'm biased because I had an instructor that was an MMA and Krav instructor. He was a Boss Rutan Systems instructor, and that's the style of MMA that he incorporated into his Krav Maga, and that's what he coached me in. So, and I ended up making my own way in style out of it, and that's what you will end up doing. But as you can see on screen, you got the smaller female officer who's manhandling the shit out of this dude because she has strong grappling. So at the end of the day, you have to incorporate that. What am I saying? Find a good program that works for you, and it's got to be across the board, striking, grappling, etc. I hope you liked the video. Please like, subscribe, and share.
Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out.